This is Mitch with the 1000 Houses podcast. I'm on the line with Russ Morgan and Joey Mure. They're with Wealth Without Wall Street. And I had the pleasure of attending their get together up in Austin. It was called the Passive Income Retreat, right? In Austin, Texas.
Yeah,
Right.
Passive Income Mastermind Retreat.
Just a little bit. Russ is the idea guy. He's up here in the left top corner. And Joey's the implementation guy. So he does all the work. Basically, Russ goes out and gets drunk and goes on LSD vacations and comes back with all these ideas. And then, poor Joey has to go out and get it all done. So
the cleanup guy.
Talking about the drugs and the alcohol, but
Yeah, I mean, it's close. Most of the time, it's either driving in the car or standing in a hot shower. That's where most of the ideas happen. But hey, things happen.
Yeah. We'll keep moving right along and past the shower scene. Okay, there, Russ, and then Russ, your background was like a financial guy. Financial services, financial tools, which is a great background for any kind of business. And then Joey, I guess you're just a red ass entrepreneur from day one, right? You're the author of the book Wealth Without Wall Street, and you kind of come up with all these podcasts and all these online ideas to generate income, generate education, and to generate a following so that people who are interested in getting rid of their job can maybe start to contemplate how that might happen. I think all of us had a job at one time, and I certainly did. I had plenty of them. And so, hey, let me ask all this. When someone's ready to quit their job, what are some of the factors they have to have within them before they take that leap and start to even contemplate leaving their job? Russ, what's your opinion? What has to be brewing in them? Because I have a definite couple of things that I think have to be in them or they're not going to make it. What do you think, Russ?
Well, I mean, at first, obviously, they just have to have a why big enough that's bigger than their why not, right? I mean, at the end of the day, failure has mostly happened when people quit. And I don't mean quitting a job. I mean, quitting on themselves, quitting the pursuit of the dream. And somebody who has grit, who has determination, they have the ingredients to make it happen. I mean, there's people that we see in our community every single day that are, firing their bosses. And some of them are, highly paid professionals, people who went to school for hundreds of years, it seems like. And there's some who right out of high school, went to work and just got to a point where they were fed up. I think most of them want something greater than what they have, and they're seeking it, and they're an avid learner. I think that's a big thing, is that you have to be willing to learn. If you feel like you've arrived in knowledge, you have all their information there is in the world, you'll probably fail because you won't be willing to absorb the information as you're making those failures. You won't be learning the lessons from them. There's a lot of other things, but that'd be my short list.
Yeah, that's what I want to off the top of your head. What about you, Joey?
I think it has to be that it's okay to have a big why, but then you have to have like a picture of what the alternate side will look like, right? It can't just be about, hey, I really don't like this about what I'm doing today. It's, I'm really going towards something that is far greater, has far better reward. So I think that's important. And then the second thing I think is having a plan that is crystallized by understanding who I am as an investor. So what Russ and I created is the investor DNA profile to help people figure out, who am I as an investor? Because, Mitch, you have an amazing gift, right? To create owner financed homes that not everybody can do and not everybody should do, right? Because they're just not built like you. They don't have the same skill set and experience and knowledge. They might need to go into more like a more passive nature business because it just fits who they are as an investor. And so I feel like the more you know about yourself, the more you can really dial into that and then be really confident. When things get rough, you go back to that. It's kind of an anchor that you say, man, I have to keep going because this is a good fit for me. Even though I ran into some difficulty, I'm going to keep pushing through because my goal is really big. The reward is really big on the other side. And I know that this is a kind of a temporary setback. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
this is a good time to bring up the giveaway that we have today. It's called a Passport Challenge, and it's all about getting clarity and the goal so you know where you're going. Because most of the people that hit it big had a plan to get somewhere. Now, it's not always, Ken D'Angelo, the founder of We Buy Ugly Houses, he said to me one time, entrepreneurs rarely end up with the idea that they start out with. They keep morphing to the path of most money with the least resistance. And it can be a completely different business, but they get into the business and these avenues and doors start to present themselves, these opportunities. And then that's when you maybe find out where you really were headed, and you make some adjustments along the way. Goals are about adjustments, if you ask me. I want to also, Joey, in your comment, you said investor DNA, but is it possible to substitute the word just entrepreneur instead of investor? Because a lot of the people that I met at your passive income retirement, they were not in real estate. I mean, they were doing other things. They had car washes. They had, they were in a lot of different things, which was really cool because they had this different kind of set of eyes that they're looking at what you're saying. And they come back with this input that you might have never thought of because they're not exactly in your business, but there's parallels in other businesses,
Oh,
So
100%.
So
Yeah,
tell
I
us
think,
about this giveaway, Passport Challenge, all about clarity and setting your goals. Tell us about that giveaway.
yeah. So the passport challenge, and Mitch, I'll say this. I think there's a lot of people that have quit dreaming. Would you say that that's a true statement for most people?
Absolutely. I see them
Yeah.
every day. I
I
feel
mean,
sorry for them.
think about it. I know you're really big on social media, like you post a good bit, and there's people on there that just love to watch somebody else's dream, but they've given up on theirs. And that's what the passport challenge is to me, is it's a way to slow down and to get really clear on what would I be doing if I had these 40 hours a week back, right? What would it actually look like? Who would I be? Like, what would I be doing? And what would I have? Like, those are the three components of this passport challenge that really challenge you to think about those key aspects and then say, okay, put visuals into a place where you can be reminded of that every single day. We include a tool that you can actually put on your desktop every day so that when you look at it, you're like, man, that's where I'm headed. That's who I really need to become. And there's steps I can take every day to get there.
That's a really cool idea, is to put it on your desktop. When you open up your computer, it pops up and here's the pictures of the places that you want to head towards. To get to this passport challenge, this free giveaway, go to 1000houses.com/no Wall Street. Okay. No spaces, just you guys know how to do it. But I think Joey hit a great point. And when I had the honor to be on the panel at your last Austin passive income retreat, I really did take it as an honor because I was honored before I got there because I know you guys. But when I got there and I saw the caliber of the people in the room, I thought, oh man, I better go back and get my shit together here because these guys are not dumb. These are some really smart guys. And it's almost intimidating, even for me. But they were from so many different walks of business that I recognized immediately. You better be on my game. But one of the things I said on there was, it's, first of all, financial freedom happens when your wants and your needs are exceeded by, and it used to say passive income, but I don't believe in the word passive. So I put by cash flow, when your wants and your needs are exceeded by your cash flow. And first of all, that means financial freedom doesn't mean you have to be wealthy, because I reached my passive income at $4,500, and then I realized if I lowered my overhead, I could get free sooner. So I cut out about $1,000. So at $3,500 a month, I was able to quit my job. I just had to create this thing coming in, on the weekends and after hours. But why was that so important? And it gets right back to what Joey said. It's because it freed up 2,600 hours so I could figure out who the hell I was really supposed to be in this planet.
Right.
Instead of giving all that time to my boss, I was able to free up 2,600. Now, some people do the math and they go, well, 40 hours a week times 8 hours isn't 2,600 hours, it's less. And I said, well, if you're going to be the kind of guy that's going to quit a job and go on your own, you better be the kind of guy that even though you were required to work 8 hours, you put in 10 because it just wasn't right yet. You know what I mean? Like you got to have a little more than just 8 to 5 mentality for sure.
Right. Totally agree.
But again, that's 1000houses.com/no Wall Street. You can always just go to the show notes. Anything we talk about on here, including their upcoming passive income retreat in Austin on September the 29th and 30th of 2022.
But Mitch, that's actually in Scottsdale. I'm sorry. The last one
Oh,
was in Austin.
Scottsdale.
This is Scottsdale. Yeah.
Oh, Scottsdale.
Yeah. I mean,
I was wondering why I wasn't invited. No, I'm just kidding.
You're totally invited, by the way.
You're totally invited. We just know it's a longer drive for you.
Yeah, Scottsdale. And then I want to digress way back. One of the things I noticed that the people that make it when they're contemplating quitting the job, the ones that actually do it, are the one that have a certain amount of angst. You know, they've got this little, it's pissing them off. They're sick and tired. I've had enough of this crap. Meter is pegged all the way over in the red. They've had enough of people telling them what time they need to get up, what time they can go home, when they can watch their kids' soccer game, how long their vacation can be, when their vacation be, how much money they can make, what they have to wear. They're sick and tired of that bullshit. And I notice it all the time. The ones that are really sick and tired of it, they seem to have a better chance to get to where they're going outside that other box they've been living in. You agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, again, there's some people that are running away from something that they're just totally sick of. There's some people that are running towards something that's so much better. I think equally they can be as powerful, just depending on which side you're on.
So I'm going to take, I learn something from podcasts all the time. That's the reason why I do this. I don't do this for the money. I don't do it. I do it because I get to talk to smart people, and I always get ideas from the people that I'm talking to from my own business or my own life. I am going to make a collage of where I want to be. I'm 61. What else do I want to do? And I'm going to have it on my desktop, because when I was building the house that I'm in right now, I built it out of my pocket, $1 at a time. I built it over, I've been in this house now 37 years. I'm almost finished. There keeps being additions and things, but I made a collage, but back then the collage was some poster board and cut out the pictures from the magazine and glue them onto the board. And I found that collage about a year ago in my attic, digging around for something. And I brought it down and I unrolled it, and lo and behold, every room was like I said I wanted that room. And I walked through the house with my wife and said, isn't this amazing? Do you remember when we made this collage board and we were living on a concrete floor and we could see every stud in the wall, and we could look up and see all the studs and the wires and the ceilings, and our kitchen sink was held up with 4 2x4s and a piece of plywood with a hole cut in the middle of it to hold the sink? Do you remember that? She was like, yeah, how could I forget? I said, well, look at what we planned back then and look what we have. And it was almost identical. Of course, you got a picture of a bathroom. Yours is a little bit different, but the same.
Yeah, you didn't mention the mirror though. Look in the mirror.
Oh, what's that mean?
Look in the mirror and see the stud staring back at you. You're just talking about all the studs in the walls. I'm just making sure you didn't miss the one in the mirror, right?
There was a lot of changes in that thing too, but most of it you couldn't see, because it's the biggest change in the world, as and people think it's cliche, but it's in your mind. The first thing you have to do is believe it can be done, because if you don't believe it can be done, then you're just pissing in the wind. I mean, it doesn't, and that's what coaches do, or that's what masterminds do, like the ones that you hold. They lead you to the conclusion that, I can do this. I think I can do this, and then you get more involved. That's the first thing to decide. And you see other people, that guy doesn't seem that much smarter than me. Look at where he's going. My gosh, if I even get half that far, I'm better than my JOB. I think I can do this. I think I can really do this. Mitch, now you got to go home and convince your spouse.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's valuable about being around others as high caliber as yourself is that you realize quickly that maybe your dream is not big enough, right? Like when you come to an event like this and you think, man, I have achieved a lot, and maybe what I have achieved or what I'm seeking to achieve is higher than I believe is possible. And then you go share it with someone like yourself at one of these events, and they put their arm around you and say, man, that's really cute. I like that idea. But let me give you this vantage point. Let me let you see from my eyes what's possible, what is truly possible for you. And it's so much higher than you would have ever anticipated, right? I mean, at that event, we had real estate investors who have reached, hundreds of millions of dollars in sales, who have, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in passive income or income coming in, cash flow, however you want to
Some
but
of
then
these
also
guys had very high net worths. I know
yeah,
that.
and then you have guys who've sold businesses for 9, 10 figures, and you're like, okay, there's levels at everything you go to. And what I love about this is that you get around people that give you a vantage point that maybe you didn't have before, right? When you're able to really network and mastermind, truly mastermind. I mean, the masterminding ideas that Napoleon Hill talked about was really some of the most wealthy people in the world sitting down, having conversations, usually around a hunting cabin. Joey and I just spent a week over in the coastal areas of Georgia and went to Jekyll Island, where the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and that whole group would get together for 3 months out of the year and sit down at a breakfast table, lunch table, and dinner table and truly mastermind and share ideas. I think there's so much opportunity for people in that, but they don't have that environment. Their natural circle either is at the same level they are or way below them. And so their lid is limited because of that.
Well, people say, but I don't have friends that run in those circles. That's what these masterminds are for. Go make some friends. You got to show up, got to write a little check and get in the room with these multimillionaires, millionaires, some of them close to billionaires, I think, are on their way. Make no mistake about it. I don't go there to meet people that are doing less than me. I go there to meet people that could wipe their backside with my financial statement. I'm, in the greatest room, I'm the least guy in the room. That's the room I want to be in. I'm the smallest guy in the room. A little bit embarrassing maybe, but shun that real fast and get on with the introductions and meeting people and find out who you have in common. Because I hate that excuse. Well, I don't know people like that. Well, there's your first goal. Get in some rooms where there are people like that.
100%.
And that's why
and they're also
ahead.
the most humble people, Mitch. Like, they're the people that have achieved far greater than you could imagine. And yet they're also looking at the room and saying, man, I took away this, I took away that. And you're like, wow, I mean, that person still has a lot to learn and they've achieved so much more. What about me? Like, it's a litmus test, that we can all take away value from that kind of a room and that kind of environment. And I mean, you're included in that, Mitch. Like, we see you as the guy that added so much value to that event. And at the same time, simultaneously, you're sitting there telling us what you walked away with was so valuable. So that's a win-win for everybody.
The coaching student that I had come, he has over 2,000 apartment doors, but he wanted, that's under control. That's running without him. He's, got that figured out, and he's still relatively young and still not done yet. So he wanted to go buy and owner finance houses, and he just want to shortcut all the whole thing. He says, let me get with you. You keep me out of the ditch here and show me what I need to do. By the way, those guys are the best students in the world because, I'm not really into one-on-one coaching to see if my game is for them. It's, it's too much money for me to gamble on someone to say, let's just see if it works out for you. Pay me this check. I like to get people, I already know they're doers. They already know how to write a contract. They already know the stuff. They have a game already. They just want to up their game. I'll spend 45 minutes talking to them. And if I think I can up their game and really get them back the money that they're paying me, then I'll say, okay, my hat's in the ring. Why don't you go home and think about it tonight? But I know I can get you back what you're going to pay me in a relatively short period of time, just from what you've told me. There's things that you're not doing. There's things you don't know. And there's corners that you're not even looking in that produce more money than what you're even talking about. And they're right in the same vein. So, that's what I do in that 45 minutes. And that's what I like about what you guys do. You're not in it for the check as much as you are for the effect, because at some point, Joey, Russ, another $1 million isn't really going to change your life at all. So there's got to be a higher reason why we do this stuff,
Absolutely. Yeah. Russ and I always would say that, man, if you knew us 3 years ago or 4 years ago, you say, man, they're doing okay. But what we did is we started to implement the things that we talk about. I mean, how many people do you know, Mitch? I know you run across a lot of people, podcasters. If you ever dig a little bit deeper below the surface, they really don't even do what they talk about doing, right? They don't even practice what they preach. And what Russ and I said is, man, if we're going to teach people how to get to financial freedom, we have to have passive income that exceeds our monthly expenses. And we started doing that even just a couple years ago. Went from $2,500. We started reporting it, by the way, which also keeps us accountable. So $2,500 a month in passive income to over $50,000 a month now. And it just comes down to the fact that Russ and I don't have anything special. We're just one beggar trying to tell another beggar where to find the bread. That's how we think about this whole game. Is financial freedom is just, man, we've been blessed with something. How do we pass that on to the next person and give them hopefully a shorter path to get there than what we had to go through?
Yeah, and I want to say this: no matter what room you're in, there's someone bigger than you, or just a half a mile down the street, maybe multiple people. And I'm very much aware of that. What I'm sure, what I know is there's people that would love to be at my level, and I'm holding a hand down trying to help them up the ladder, but that there's people way above me and I got my hand up and I'm trying to get a hand to the next rung on the ladder up for me. And so when we talk about numbers or passive income, don't look at it like we're sticking our chest out or anything. We're just trying to tell you where we're at. So if you're beyond that, maybe you need to find someone else that's way up there. If you haven't reached that level, say 50,000, passive income or cash flow, then this might be a good place to start. Um, I like talking about the numbers, but I don't want anyone to ever take it like I'm bragging about it, because it's nothing to brag about. There's Donald Trumps in the world that would laugh at me, just laugh, would spend a second with me, and they're all over the place. You don't know.
Well, Mitch, I will say this: what inspired Jody and I to start sharing our numbers, definitely, as he said, I mean, 2,500 sounds like a lot to the person who has zero, right? But for the person who's been going down this road for a long time, 2,500 is nothing. It's a fraction of what they have or what they would need to have. But Joey and I were at a conference, a podcast conference. Actually, we met two guys, and they were publishing their passive income report right on their websites, and they were bringing in over 100. One of them almost 300,000 a month. And Joey and I were like blown away, right? About even the considering that as an option, right? Not your active business, but a passive or less involved business that is producing that amount of cash flow on a monthly basis. And we thought, man, what an opportunity. And you got a chance to meet Sharon Srivatsan while you were there in Austin. And he shared something with Joey and I a long time ago. He says, what you track grows, but what you track and report on grows exponentially. And to me, that's,
you don't want to be made, you don't want to be made out falling backwards or slipping. You got to be growing, right? So,
right. Well, and that's the reason why we share the numbers. One, we want to be accountable to the numbers. We want the numbers to grow exponentially, but also we want to inspire people that are around us to say, I've heard you guys' stories. I've listened to your backgrounds. There's nothing special about you. You didn't grow up with a father or a mother who are experts in this area. You grew up in very, we may say upper lower class, right? I mean, and maybe it was middle lower class, but I mean, Joey and I, we didn't have a lot growing up. Our parents didn't understand money. They definitely didn't teach us about money. And it was only through our just desire to be around people and to learn that this happened, and God's blessing us with just people like yourself that have shared ideas with us, that have given us an ability well beyond our natural giftings.
So let me share something that I came up with lately. Someone says, there's so many strategies out there. Where do I begin to pick a strategy? And I'm just talking about the real estate segment, not any other segments. And so I started thinking about that, and I said, maybe the first decision is you decide, do you want to be a cash guy or a cash flow guy? Because that'll knock like 50%. Either one you pick will knock like 50% out, and then it'll narrow the field by 50%. I'm guessing at that percentage, but it'll drastically, because I wish I would have understood that what I wanted was cash flow all my life. I didn't know that for a long time. I was inventing service businesses, and you know what I mean, and get paid and then have to do another job kind of business, or make a sale and then have to sell another one to make some more money. And I finally figured out that I don't give a damn about how much cash is in the bank today. I want to know how much is coming in every 30 days. That's the number I want to work on. So I have 300 mortgages. average, just say $500 positive cash flow on mortgage, which I am not a landlord. I'm collecting the payment because people make payments on my houses to me for 30 years. And I took my money, that's all with borrowed money. That's all with private money. I took my money and I bought storages because that was a forever cash flow stream that would end when I said. Notes end when someone pays you off or when they just expire through time. So they're temporary. So I said to myself, I need a permanent cash flow business, and I picked self-storage and semi-truck parking. I rent dirt for people to park their cars on, or I rent 10 by 10 cubicles for people to store their space in. And I'm happy to report that I have 1,300 doors right now, or 1,300 spaces I can rent, and I paid them all off. And I average about $100 a person, and I don't have a partner in that business too. And it's like a snowball. The bigger that you get your cash flow right, the easier it is to improve the cash flow because the money just starts kind of stacking up in the bank. The secret is, to me, is to mitigate your lifestyle long enough to make a real business. Like you can go out and buy a boat in the first year, but why don't you just put the boat off for a little while, rent one a couple of times a year, but keep rolling the money back into the business. In my storage business, I didn't take any money out for 12 years, except for once a year when it was cost this much. It still costs about this much now, about $2,000 to $2,500 to $3,000 for a week-long vacation, all-inclusive resort in Mexico. That's the only thing that storage business ever gave me for 12 years. Once a year, it would give me a vacation with my wife and I. And I rolled it all back in to adding on, building better, buying dirt, whatever it was. Let's talk about that delayed gratification. Russ?
Yeah. Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, you got to think about what are the opportunities. You would see the people who have been successful have found a way to delay that, have been able to avoid shiny object syndrome. A lot of times people see yourself and others and say, man, look at, Mitch is in storage. He's over here in, large truck parking, but also he does owner finance homes. And I'm sure there's been some other things you've done over the time. And they say, oh, well, I need to be in 4 or 5 or 6 different things. That's the way I make money. And the answer is no. People make their money in one thing. They do it really well over and over again. And then once they got to that point, then they find alternative avenues to create cash flow. So I would say that you have to be dedicated. You have to be determined. You have to match up what you're investing in with who you are, what your natural giftings are. And then you're able to add value to the world. Then you can create the income streams that you want. And you find things. I mean, I have a friend of mine this past weekend, Mitch, he sends me a picture of one of these new Humvee truck deals, like convertible truck deals. And he's like, what do you think about this? And he says, this is my new asset. And I'm like,
oh no,
I'm struggling, but wait till you hear the rest of the story. He's like, yeah, it just came in and the guy is going to pick it up in the morning for $70,000 more than I paid for it. He said, I did that 6 months ago with the Ferrari for 140 more than I paid for it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I hadn't even considered that. And he said, we should be driving the liabilities and selling the assets. And what he was talking about is in markets like today, where crazy things are happening in the car world, like he's found a way this guy falls into money. But he's figured out the game is that he had the $1,000 deposit to buy that truck with, and he sold it. He said, now if it would have come 4 weeks ago, I could have sold it for 140 over sticker.
Wow. So
I mean,
that was one of the things too at the retreat that I went to with you guys. There was a guy, he had some big cars and he had a lot of stuff, but it was always like he was Airbnb-ing out his car for the weekend, and he was writing the car off and depreciating the car. And if he wanted to drive it when it wasn't rented, he could take his wife to the evening on the town in the Lamborghini, but he was renting it out and depreciating it. He had all these tax reasons. And I thought, oh my gosh,
Yeah, that was Dave Zook. Yeah, Dave Zook. He's like turning all of his liabilities into assets. That was his talk for sure. And that's a lesson we can learn, right? If you're listening to this right now and you're like, okay, I hear these guys talking about really cool strategies. Which one do these apply to me? All of them do at some level, but this one for sure what assets, what liabilities do you have right now that are adding to the right side of the equation, the monthly expense column of your financial freedom formula? Like passive income has to be exceeding your monthly expenses, but you have things that are adding to that liability column that could be used on the passive income side some way. How do we get creative about that? How do we start thinking differently about the things that are right there in our control now and making them work for us?
Let me put this in perspective. You can get a car that costs you $800 a month, or you can take the money that you bought the car with and buy an apartment complex or a rent house that makes you $800 a month. That's a $1,600 a month swing from spending 800 to making 100.
100%.
So the cost of what you did with that money wasn't $800. It was $1,600. People don't add the lost opportunity from because they didn't spend it on something that made money. I mean, it's real easy. Kiyosaki made it simple. I mean, an asset brings in more than goes out, period. You know, it's not hard. So when the bank asks you what your assets are and you have to put a boat on there, just remember, it's probably not bringing in more money than's going out. It's not technically an asset. That's why we're all screwed up. They taught us wrong.
Yeah, unless you figured out how to create a boat rental business and then you get to rent it out.
Which Zook did, you know?
Exactly.
By the way, I think he has a meeting in San Antonio where he has Tommy's Car Washes, a franchise, and he invited me to go. Do I want to be in the car wash business? Not really. Will it hurt me to understand how the car wash business works? Not at all. It's very worth my day down there. You know what I mean? And who might I meet in San Antonio while I'm listening to that thing? But let's digress a bit. You know, I talked about being in some multiple businesses. I want to go back. I would have been so much further ahead if I'd have stayed with owner financing, just owner financing, buying and owner financing for the first 8 or 10 years and really got it down to a science. I got off track so many times trying to do a second thing or a third thing that really cost me a lot of time and a lot of money. One of my friends says one of the biggest threats to an entrepreneur is spare time, because they'll go off into ventures they know nothing about just because they're bored. No, he said the biggest thing was boredom. I have a quote. No one knows it because I'm not famous, but mine is, the hardest thing an entrepreneur will ever do is have one great idea and finish big. Because we see opportunity in everything. Now, the businesses I did get off to, they were very closely related to the business I was in. I was in the self-storage business, but semi-truck parking, it's not the same business, but it is kind of the same business. I'm renting pieces of ground, and the same software worked for it, the same management company worked for it. I could plug it in, but I was kind of diversifying within my own business. You know, there's self-storage, then there was boat storage, and then there was open parking for RV trailers and boats and RVs and truck trailers, and then there all of a sudden semi-truck parking. Holy cow. What I love about semi-park trucking is I'm always looking at what the downside is. What happens in a downturn in the economy to this business? I love the storage business, but it's a little iffy, but it stays even. When people are growing during the boom times, they need storage. When it's the bad times, they're downsizing, but we're Americans. We're not going to get rid of our junk. We're going to move it to a storage. So it just kind of stays flat. What I liked about the storage truck business was if those trucks are rolling, they need a place to park. And if the economy comes to a screeching halt and not a truck is rolling, they have to have a place to park. Either way, they're parking on my place.
That's totally genius. So since you shared that at the retreat, I don't doubt I have been keeping my eyes open for places like that around town that I was like, we got to find a place like this. This makes all the sense in the world. Mitch is a genius.
It's not that. We bought a piece of dirt we didn't have any idea what to do with, but it was 12 acres. It was right on I-35, a major highway. It had 3 buildings on it that would, if we rented them, would cover the cost. And my partner, Mike, negotiated a $650,000 sales price with 200 grand down and financed the 450 for 20 years at 6%, and with a substitution clause that if we ever wanted to move the debt to something of equal or greater value, we could. And it was a non-recourse loan. So we bought it, but we didn't have any idea what to do with it. We just knew that we were going to at least break even. It wasn't going to kill us until we figured out what to do. One day, Mark's Mike's getting ready to leave the place, and it faces I-35. And he stopped because he was on the phone and he was talking, and he's watching the highway, and semi truck after semi truck after semi truck. And we found out later it's like 100,000 semi trucks a day go past that lot. We'd never been in the truck business, never thought about the truck business. It was just the business was right there, and because we're entrepreneurs, he picked up on it. We didn't even know it was going to work. Right now, the buildings we rented, and here's a cool thing. We rented the big 5,000 square foot metal building to a diesel mechanic. So we were able, and then we put 200 trucks behind him in a parking lot, 200 semi trucks behind him. So we didn't just rent the place for what the normal rent was. We rented it because it was a built-in clientele and business. So the guy that moved in had his previous customers, but now he had 211 people that he'd never met before. And you know the cool thing about that semi truck business, if you're a mechanic at the front of the land, is you can take a lawn chair and you can go out and set it at the back of the building and turn it around to face the trucks, and you can sit in that truck and you can crack yourself a cold beer and you can just watch those trucks break
in real time.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like being a jet ski mechanic down at the lake. You just can't have enough business. I mean, there's an endless supply.
So we waited to see if it was going to work. Then we bought another place, but it wasn't really on the highway. Much more difficult to fill up.
Yeah.
So it's working, but you know we had to pay some advertising money and stuff. What's the offshoots? Talk to me about your offshoots. Like you started with a core or something, and then you made a little offshoot. Can you have an example of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you were just talking about, different areas, right? We're in the podcasting world, and through podcasting, we interviewed someone in the short-term rental space, and was fascinated by that because Joey and I both have large families. When we travel, we can't stay in hotels. Hotels are not large enough for us. We're always renting a house through a channel like VRBO or Airbnb. And for us, the thing that we thought of is, well, how do we build that business ourselves? How do we create it? And so we started an Airbnb short-term rental business and have grown it to over 26 units. Well, as a offshoot to that, as another strategy to create cash flow and help others, is we're naturally podcasting already. We're talking to people who are interested in ways to, take maybe a hospitality nature and maybe an apartment that they already have or a home they already have and turn it into cash flow. And so then we just had our operator basically just record what he was doing, built out this whole course on how to get your first unit up and running and multiply it. And every time he did anything for our business, he just would go back and make an update. Hey, by the way, we've added this software. It's helped us do this. And through that whole process, not only have we improved our own short-term rental business, but also we've created an avenue for all of the people in our community to take a course, and it creates cash flow, right? I mean, it's an amazing, just side-by-side item for us to be able to do. And there's probably 100 other ideas, but that for us was a natural fit.
And then another thing that we learned through podcasting, and as you know, we got our start talking about and learning how to implement infinite banking, right? We teach people how to do that. We have coaches that are full-time that actually implement this for people. And through that, we had a lot of capital that we had to get to work. And so as we were interviewing all these people on the podcast, we started hearing these passive income ideas. One was short-term rentals, as Russ mentioned. The other was land flipping. And, your good friend, Mark Podolsky. And over the course of a couple of years, we were like, okay, how do we implement this? Because we don't have the time. We can't do this on our own. We have to have a team doing this for us. And so over time, we built a relationship with Mark's team. And now they created a done for you land flipping business for us. And now it's something they implement for a lot of people. And it now has created over $22,000 a month. And we never talk to a buyer, never create notes. We never do any of the process. They do it all, and it's 100% run by their team.
Are you just putting up the money as a partner?
Right. We're the money side of the partnership. They're the operations of it, and we have a split based on that. And man, it's one of my favorite things that we ever do.
And one of the things, I mean, the area in which we have experience, right? Joey and I come both from business backgrounds. We think operationally, we think marketing, we think management, and it's finding investment opportunities, right? That some people would just be pure investors in, but for us, we like the idea of adding value from our experience. So we like putting together business operations, partnerships, and being a part of those relationships. Not only can we negotiate probably better deals than the average person because of that experience that we have, but also we find ways to bring in strategic partners and use influence to enhance the overall goal of the partnership. So we find like that's one of those offshoots, right? Like there's a gifting that we have. We understand financials, data maybe a little better than average Joe, and then we apply that into the businesses in which we operate in.
Yeah. So I used to like try to start an offshoot business and then try to bring it into my infrastructure, and we all ran it, which was a disaster because every business takes everything you have. So what I learned was if you're going to start a new business, your partner has to be the guy that knows how to run it from the top and the bottom, and you either are supplying the money or you're supplying the customers from your residual leads or whatever. But that business has to be able to stand alone without me. I have a business to run. You know what I mean? So that's when I started being successful at the little offshoot businesses. Like I was collecting 300 mortgages and 1,300 payments from storage people. I was a professional collector, but it got to where in the mortgage business I needed to have TMO, which was the mortgage office, which was a $27,000 software that required $5,000 worth of training for the people, and I really needed it for my business. But I'm thinking, wow. But once you learn that software, you can manage 2,000 properties for the same amount, with the same people, because the software is so effective. So I thought, well, I'll buy the software, I'll get the people trained, and then I'll start servicing other people's notes in the state of Texas. And it'll pay me for my software, and it'll pay for my people that run the servicing I need. Plus, they'll make money plus, on top of that, they'll even still make money servicing other people's notes. So I got rid of my liability of managing my own notes. I bought the software, but I got it paid back to me, and I even make money every month now, $20,000-$30,000 a month, because I got someone to handle that business. It's just one office down from my assistant's office. The key was I just found someone who really knew the business that was working for someone else, and I just went and poached them. That's the other thing I learned. Don't try to train someone to do a business that you've never been in before. Poach someone that can come in and show you how this business is supposed to run and pay them really good.
The who, not the how. That's so important.
Yeah. When you guys, how much staff do you guys have, or what's your, how many people does it take to keep you guys afloat?
Well, in which business, right? Like, I mean, we have so many different businesses, and the Wealth Without Wall Street is both an information company. We also have an insurance arm. We have an investment arm. We have a whole wing to masterminds and things like that. Our main core team, though, is made up of about 8 people, and they're all remote, and they operate fairly independently. We get on calls once a week to kind of have a powwow and organization for the team, and then we use software in order to communicate with each other. And then each of the other little businesses, it may be as little as 1 person up to 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, same here. It's a real trick running lean, but not being understaffed. It's just a constant.
Well, for us, and I would say this is one last giveaway. I know we got to get off here, but one last thing that we learned a long time ago is when you're in partnerships or you're hiring people, in order to understand, will that person be successful? And I was doing it right before you and I got on this call, Mitch, is we use a tool called Culture Index. Are you familiar with that? Culture Index is a tool that helps you match up someone's giftings with the jobs and the duties in which that job would require to that personality. They're way more effective when they're working in the area that they already have, as compared to trying to train them to do things that they're just not naturally gifted to do. And so one of the things we do is, before we go into partnership with anybody in investment, or we bring on a new team member, one, Joey and I take this job questionnaire. What would the ideal candidate look like? And it asks us, a series of questions over 6 pages. And then it spits out a profile and says, here's what the ideal candidate looks like. And he will do it. And then we'll usually have a third person do it. So that way we make sure that, we have a blend of what we all believe that job requires. And then we have every candidate take that survey, that application, and it will match them as to a percentage of how close are they to what we want. And so anybody that's less than 75%, we just don't even interview them. It doesn't matter what the resume is. Doesn't matter. We never even get on a conversation with them, because we know that person would not be successful because they don't already naturally possess the things that we're looking for that specific role. And that has helped us save so much money, has kept us out of bad deals, but that we would have never, understood, because sometimes you can talk to people and people are deceiving, right? People have the ability to, sweet talk you and share good things and ideas and strategies, but you don't know, can they actually back it up, or will they back it up when everything goes crazy? Yet a tool like that has been super helpful for us.
I was the worst person hire ever. It was terrible. I picked people I liked or whatever, they were great. They couldn't do the job for shit. And then finally we started testing people. It said this one guy was an engineer, but he was going to make a great acquisition guy. I thought, this is not going to work. And he's been with us 7 years, one of our top producers. So I said, okay, you made me into a believer. Don't ever ask me who to hire. Just take the test. But we were doing like a DISC or personality test. How does that differ the culture index, or is it kind of the same thing?
Well, the culture index, it actually tracks more of more things than the DISC profile. Like, so for instance, how autonomous are they going to be versus how much do they really value being on a team? How much they are driven by interaction with people or not? Like, do they need less time with people, more time with people? Their pace, like something I never saw in a DISC profile was how quickly they want to implement something. And then lastly, how much do they like tied to a process? Like how what's the word I'm looking for, Russ? How
will they conform? Do they have
do they conform? And those things are super helpful to know in light of, as well as they also track how much their energy units are, right? Like how much do they really expend in their work every day versus how much do they actually need for the role? So you can see, does this person have a lot of energy left over? This job really isn't that taxing on them, or is it way too taxing? And we need to, we need to have a conversation about that. So there's so many insights into it.
I think this is interesting for our listeners. So if someone wants to use this system, you just go to cultureindex.com, or do you buy it, or is it cost so much a test? What is it?
Yeah, it's a licensed item, and yeah, I believe it's cultureindex.com. You could just type in culture index in Google and then it would come to it, but it's a licensing item you get with whatever the rep is that you connect with. We met one, it actually was a client, and he works with typically companies, 100 persons or more, and he's using it with those larger companies to help them understand their management team, who is a good fit on their management team, who's not, who's likely to quit, who's somebody they need to fire. And he can give crazy insight into what someone's thinking just by their dots. I mean, he was telling me about a scenario where he went up to this guy, he had just been looking at his thing. He said, let me ask you, do you have a notebook sitting on your bedside table? And the guy goes, that's crazy. Why would you ask me that? He goes, just answer the question. The guy goes, yeah, how'd you know? He's like, because I can look at your dots and I can tell that you're the type of person that wakes up in the middle of the night thinking of ideas, and you've got to get them down as fast as you possibly can. And he looks at me and says, I guarantee you, you're a challenger. If I wanted you to do something, all I need to do is bet you that you couldn't. And I was like, what do you want to bet me? Like, 'cause, I mean, automatically, like he just knows that intuitively about you. And I think tools like that you can say, is this person a deductive thinker? Is this a critical thinker? Is this someone who's going to be a verbal processor? Are they project oriented? Are they task oriented? Are they future oriented? Are they past oriented? That's so important. And every role has a need, right? You don't want someone who's very project oriented in a very task related job. And you tend to hire people that are similar to you. And unfortunately, right, like if I was trying to hire people that were similar to you and me, Mitch, they wouldn't want to follow through on anything. They would want to be dreaming of the next idea. They would want to be talking, right?
To the next person if they were like this, right?
So anyway,
but I still want to drive this point home a little bit. Can you just give me a ballpark about what it costs to put a person through the process, or to get the ability to put a person through the process? Just a ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's around $10,000 for, an average company size of 25 people or less. And I do think that they charge based upon the numbers. So if you had a company that was 500 employees or whatever,
Yeah,
I
of course
think,
they're going to need to get more, but
yeah, they would do workshops and trainings. And so the cost per year would be more. And I'm grateful to share our contact with you. So if you want to put that in the link of the thousandhouses.com/no Wall Street. I'll put that in there, make sure that they can get connected with that individual if that's something that they feel like would be valuable to them.
Please put that in your notebook that you have on the left-hand side there of your desk. Because the reason why I wanted to get a number is because the most disheartening thing in the world is to spend 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months with someone trying to get them acclimated to do a job, and then they don't pan out. It's horrible. It's a complete. It's demoralizing. It's like, oh my God, I got to start this all over with someone else. Do I even want to? I'll get someone else at my office to do this position. I'm tired of this. It's really demoralizing. So sometimes spending a little up front to get the right person, or holding off until you find the exact right person, that gets my vote.
Yeah.
Every time.
And that's what and if you can apply that same tool, we use it within our mastermind of helping our mastermind members understand their natural gifting and how they see the world. And even though it wasn't meant for investments, it still tells you, are you a patient person? Do you like to work on things? Do you like change? Or, what are the things that you're going to be more aligned with? So then when there's things that you get that person who's really hands-on driven, who likes to touch things, right? And they would need to be in business operations. When you put them in syndications that they can't touch at all, it typically frustrates them. So they put very little amounts of money in them. And so they never see the value out of them. That's the way I was, at least. And so I like businesses where I get in partnerships, and even I don't want to necessarily do the job, but I would love to be a part of the conversation and at least have the person listen to my idea, whether they implement it or not. And that, to me, I will put lots of money into things like that. And then you could see how does that translate to your speed to financial freedom?
There you go. All right, you guys, I want you to take advantage and get your free passport challenge. It's going to open your eyes to how to achieve clarity in your goals. And so give yourself a better chance to get there. Clarity is everything. I've never been really good at it. I never really set big goals myself. My goal was always how to be better this year than I was last year. And let's see how far it goes. And let's see how much better I can get this year than last year. That was always my goal. It took me to places I never dreamed. If you'd have asked me 30 years ago, I couldn't fathom where I'm at. And I wouldn't have been able to handle it either. I mean, it's a growing process. You kind of mature into these places. And to get to that, you go to 1000houses.com /no Wall Street, get your passport challenge. If you want to learn about the culture index, they're going to put that in there. If you want to learn about the passive income retreat, wherever it's at, this one coming up at September the 29th and the 30th is going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, but they have them around the country. They had them in Austin one time when I went. Don't be afraid to get over there and get this information. They also have podcasts. They have a lot of different things they offer. Also, what did we say? Infinite banking, where you use insurance policies to fund yourself. All kinds of ideas. And if one of them seems like they might be for you, go ahead and pick up on it and study on it and get what you can from it for free. And then if you want to go further, you know, we always have to pay a little bit more. But think about college, 4 years, man. What do you really get? At least in these circles with podcasts and all the online people that are offering education, you can find what you want and spend all those hours just drilling down on the one thing, or the one strategy, and become an expert. That's my opinion of it. Joey, Russ, I'm sorry I missed you at the ranch the other weekend.
Oh, that was a big letdown for me, man. I was so looking forward to that, but I understand our time got our time got taken out from us. So
The invitation's still open, so anytime. Maybe you just need to come down just for that. You know what I mean?
that's what we should definitely do for sure.
Yes. It's always the invitation. Just call me sometime. All right, my friends. Did I miss anything? Anything you want to cover before I go? Did I leave anything out?
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to do a series for like the next month or so, I think we're good for today. But man, I just want to encourage you as you're listening to Mitch, like take action. You know, good information is good information, but putting it into action, you're going to learn as you go. Don't be afraid to fail. We've all failed. We didn't have time to get into all those today, but yeah, join us on the journey, and we're happy to support you any way we can.
Speaking of that, failure is part of the plan, right? When I wrote the book, Failing Forward to Financial Freedom, I didn't know it, but I was trying to figure out how I was going to go try all this, stuff. And I knew I was going to fail, but how do I keep from going completely under? Because I didn't mind failing, but I didn't want to lose my house. I didn't want to get a divorce over finances. I didn't want to be on a street and trying to figure out how I was just going to eat. I mean, I'm willing to fail, but I didn't want to lose everything. So I came up with like the moat theory. I got $3,500 coming in. I never gambled it. And anything I made over $3,500, I could go out there. And if they just stole it from me in the streets, it was okay. I come back into my little castle. It's all paid for. And I figure out how to make a little bit better plan than that last one, because the last one sucked and I lost my money. And if you can afford to fail like that, I mean, if you could live a life failing like that, it won't be long before you figure it out. And then you'll be on your way.
Yeah,
that was the point.
I love that.
What would you say to the young entrepreneurs out there that want to quit their job, Russ, before we wrap it up?
Hey, you don't have to be great to start. You just have to start to be great. That's Zig Ziglar. And what the hand does, the mind remembers. And I think that's Maria Montessori. Both of those things are great ways to live by. Take action upon that, and you'll be on your way.
I love that. What the hand does, the mind remembers. Which is saying, we learn by doing. Some
100%.
of us got to put our hand on the burner once, and other people got to put their hand on the burner twice. But eventually we figure out that burner's hot. We probably shouldn't do that. And it works on the left hand too, twice. So, all right, my friends, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. It's an honor to have you. Your mastermind passive income retreat in Austin that I went to was great. The caliber of people there was great. I encourage anyone to go there. Again, learn about it at 1000houses.com/Know Wall Street and get your passport challenge. And I think that's it, guys. We're going to wrap it up.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mitch.
for having me on.
Appreciate
Thanks
you.
as always, Mitch.
All right, this is Mitch Stephen with the 1000 Houses podcast. We're about at 500 episodes, so you can actually go over to 1000houses.com, hook up with the podcast, and just listen to us until you're sick of me. So get over there and check it out, all different topics. If you like what we're doing and you want to do me a favor, go hit a like button somewhere or post a favorable review anywhere. It helps out tremendously. I'm not famous by any stretch of the imagination. And there's people out there looking for this kind of information. They just don't know it exists. So help us out if you have a mind to. All right, we're out of here. Bye now.
Well, I've had enough of this 9 to 5. This desk and chair robs me of my life.